Oh man, this thing cooks. Let's go up. And here we are for yet another review from H.King. This is the 64mm L-39 from H.King. It comes plug and play with the 4S power system, so let's talk about it. Kicking things off with the specs, the wingspan on the L-39 is 635mm, total length is 785mm, weight is between 680 to 710 grams. The ESC is a 50 amp brushless ESC from H.King. Motor is a 2220 3300 kV brushless outrunner, and it comes equipped with 3 9-gram servos. Battery recommendations are a 2200 4S with a minimum of 30C, which is actually what I used, and it worked perfectly fine on this aircraft. Now for the center of gravity, the book calls for 49mm from the leading edge of the plane, of the wing rather, and this is what I've pretty much done with mine. You can see I've put a couple of little silver dots there. Now if you've out at the field and you've forgotten to mark yours, it's pretty much where the edge of the intake is. That's where your CG should be. On straight wing aircraft, I don't usually play around with it too much, and it seems to work perfectly fine by the book, so that would be what I would recommend. Okay, so for the assembly on the L-39, it's going to take a little bit of time to put it together because everything is glued into place. There are no screws on this aircraft. You are going to need to glue the main wing to the fuselage. You are going to need to glue the horizontal stab to the back end here, and then glue the vertical stabilizer to the fuse as well. Now, I would recommend you don't glue this part into place, because this top section here is actually magnetized, although I can't take it off at the moment because there's a reason for that. But this part here is what comes off to allow you to service the EDF. And yeah, just don't put glue around the front part of the vertical stab, just put glue around the back end here. Other than that, it's pretty straightforward. These rods already come pre-installed. However, you will need to tighten this up a little bit, and obviously check that your control surfaces are nice and straight and even. Yeah, that's really it. All of these plastic skids here already come pre-installed. Same with the back one here, it's already pre-installed. That's already done. You just have to glue the wing to the fuse and your horizontal and vertical stabilizers at the back here, and then connect the rear elevator rod back here. I did have to do one little change, and that was with the servo horn here. The servo horn was pretty much dead on 90 degrees to the side. Now you'll notice that there's a little bit of a Z-bend on this rod, and I needed to bring the rod down, or forward rather, so that I could have my elevator straight. And in order to do that, I had to take out that servo horn and just move it one notch over, so you can see it's kind of pointing downwards a little bit, or pointing forwards a little bit. That's because of that Z-bend was kind of hitting the servo horn, and that's really the only thing I had to sort of change. So if you do come across that problem, it's a very easy fix. Remove the servo horn, move it across, and you're good to go. Everything else you can see here, my receiver's tucked away back there. Your batteries are going to be mostly forward, especially the small compact 2200 that I was using, which was this little guy here. This guy just pretty much sits almost all the way forward, and then if you're using 22 or 2400s like this one, you're going to be somewhere in the middle of the fuse, so you don't have to have you don't need the space back here. So this, you can tuck away your wires and everything else, and that'll be perfectly fine. Other than that, that's really all you need to do. These little bits here are actually magnetized, which is a really cool feature. They go on the ends there like that, and so far they haven't come off at all, so they seem to work quite well. And then your canopy is magnetized as well. That just pops on there like so, and that's it. The assembly's done, and you can go out and fly. So now we come to the part of the video where you actually get to see this thing fly for the first time. I'm actually going to be showing you the Maiden. Now at the start of this Maiden, you'll hear me sort of whinge a little bit because I don't usually like to do Maidens with hand launched planes on my own, because you never really know what the plane's going to do, and I prefer to have somebody launch it for me so that I'll have both hands on the sticks. So I was a little bit nervous, a bit hesitant, but I needed to get the flight footage out before launch, and so I went out in the afternoon and did the flight footage. Unfortunately, the maiden flight was cut short due to something else that happened, but I'm not going to spoil it for you here. I'm going to let you watch the video, and then we'll come back and we'll talk a little bit more about the H.King L-39. All right, here goes nothing. I don't know if I should go this way with my hand back here. Probably that'll be the best way, huh? All right, timer on, throttle on, low rates, into the wind. It's not much wind, so let's see how we do. I hate doing this by myself. I really do. Okay, just try it. Here we go. Oh, yes. Thank goodness. All right. That up trim definitely helped. I had a bit of up trim on there. Wow, that EDF doesn't sound very good. It's a bit ordinary. Also needs quite a bit of left aileron. CG seems good. Still wants to go to the right. Okay, now. Yeah, okay, interesting. Okay. Bit of down trim, because I had a bit of up trim when I launched it. Oh, that's not good. That's not good at all. That's a fail. What's happened there? What happened there? What happened? Something came off. Something's come loose. The EDF sounded awful then. Oh, that's burnt. Oh, no, that's a cooked motor. That's what that is. That is a cooked motor on the EDF. Oh, wow. I knew the EDF sounded bad, but I didn't think it was going to fail. That's not good. Reviewer's curse. So we're using Forest 2200 30C. This isn't a high-powered battery, can't blame the battery. Oh, that smells so bad. That's a cooked motor, 100%. Yeah, no, that doesn't even, it's seized. Wow. All right, well, that was a really good launch, and it was flying fine, but not good. So as you saw, the EDF failed. It burnt out the motor. This is the EDF that comes with this plane. It's something that, to be honest, I've never really seen an EDF like this before. This chamber here, it's usually a little bit bigger, but this is 100% cooked. Like, I'm struggling to turn this. It's, yeah, the motor is definitely gone. It was a little bit surprising. I wasn't expecting it. I know that this wasn't sounding the best, but then that could be the actual blades themselves and the motor, the harmonics from the jet itself, because it does have like a glass fiber tube on the back of it. So all of that could have played a part, but I wasn't expecting the motor to blow. unfortunately it did. Now, you're going to see more flights on this. I'm going to show you 2 more flights at the end of this video where I've actually replaced the EDF. This is when I found out that you don't need to glue at the front of the vertical stab. You need to allow this to actually come off if you do need to replace the EDF. At the moment, when I replaced it, this is magnetized, but it's not sticking down 100%. So I've put a little bit of tape here. You probably won't be able to see it because it's like hinge tape. So it's meant to be invisible, and that's holding that down. I did have to clean up inside a little bit, and I did have to modify the EDF. Now the EDF that I used is a 64mm FMS one that I had here as a spare. I didn't buy it specifically for this. I had it from another aircraft. It was a brand new unit, and it plugged straight into the 50 amp ESC. It's a 3150 kV if I'm not mistaken, and it looked pretty much identical to what this Freewing one is. The only reason why I didn't use the Freewing one is because the Freewing one's got a lower kV motor. It's a 2850, but I think the FMS one was the same size motor, so it was a 2840. In order to fit these units in this plane, you got to cut away this lip. And so I was very careful to cut away the lip, sand it flat, make sure that it was nice and smooth. I even took off the little tabs as well that these usually come with, and it fitted in there perfectly. However, because it is a slightly bigger EDF, as in like the motor and the plastic unit itself is a little bit bigger, it added a little bit more tail weight. And so in order to compensate, even with the batteries going all the way forward, I did have to add a little bit of nose weight that you can see just there. So there's a couple of bits of, I suppose you call them like wheel weights. They're stuck in the nose there. And that allows me to still have this battery going all the way forward here. So it can still go all the way to the nose and get my CG correct. And if I'm running the bolts, for example, they kind of sit somewhere in the middle here and they work perfectly fine. So that's really the only thing. So the plane is a little bit heavier now than what it used to be, but it still flies perfectly fine. I think it's a little bit of a letdown to have an EDF unit burn up like that. Obviously, we don't want that to happen. However, if the plane, if the plane is cheap enough, and I don't know how much it's going to be because as of the time of filming, this hasn't been released yet. If it's going to be cheap enough, it's still not a bad platform if you want to put a decent EDF unit in there that not only is going to sound better, but it's probably going to give you a little bit more power as well. It all depends on price. You kind of need to sort of take this with a little bit of grain of salt. Hopefully mine's just a one-off. It's a bit of an oddity. Reviewer's curse is a thing that's happened to me plenty of times in the past. I've had a lot of things go bad with, early release models and things like that, with cars and also with planes. So this is not totally new, but I'm just hoping that it's not something that is common. That's what I'm hoping for. So we'll see how things play out. It is a little bit unfortunate that it happened, but I overcame it very quickly, fixed it, and the plane actually flies really well, which kind of leads me to the flight characteristics of this plane and everything else. So one of the things you're probably going to notice is that this is actually quite a small aircraft. And to give you a bit of a comparison, I actually have another one here that you might recognize. So this is the Aero's L-39, and this one actually has a slightly longer wingspan by almost 2 inches. So it's quite amazing. Lengthwise, they're identical. However, one thing I did notice, and I'll see if I can show you this, you probably won't be able to see it 100%, but if I put them nose to nose, you'll see that the H.King one, the wing is a little bit more forward on the fuselage, and it's also a lot broader. Oops, the canopy always comes off. The wing on the H.King one is much wider, it's much broader than this guy here, and I think that that's done on purpose to give you a little bit more lift, because this one is a 50mm and it's a little bit lighter, and therefore it doesn't need that much wing. And my little thing here came off. Let me see if I can put that back. There we go. But yeah, this actually flies really well with a 64mm fan in there, which I was a little bit worried about, but it flies really, really nice. It doesn't have unlimited vertical. Obviously, it's a little bit heavier with a bigger unit and a bigger battery. So the L-39 on 4S with a 1500 milliamp battery in there has almost unlimited vertical, so the climb out is a lot more aggressive. But I think top speed wise, we're splitting hairs between the two. I think they're actually, speed-wise, they're very, very similar. They feel equally fast. And I actually flew both of them back to back to see what they were like. And in the same conditions and everything, I mean, if anything, this is probably slightly more stable because of the extra weight and because of the broader wing. So there's that to take into account. But yeah, the other one just has a little bit more vertical because it is a lighter unit and it's running a smaller EDF with a smaller battery, so it kind of makes sense. But yeah, aside from that, they're very, very similar in flight characteristics. And I do like this one in the sense that it doesn't feel like it's going to stall in those lower speeds just as you're coming into land as much as that L-39. I feel like with the Aeros one, I kind of have to come in just a few kilometers faster. Like it feels like you just have to have a tiny bit more pace when you're coming into land. Whilst with this one, I could almost high alpha this thing and just plop it on the ground. And you'll see it on one of the flights. I literally just flew it today in front of, like down the street from where I live. There's a little paddock there. And it basically just plopped down really well, and it didn't feel like it was going to drop a wing. It just kind of mushed forward. So in that sense, this one probably flies a little bit better, even though it is a heavier plane. But that's really the only sort of thing I can point out to you is broader wing, sensitive, very sensitive ailerons. So turn down your rates, plenty fast. Doesn't sound great with the stock EDF, but again, take that with a grain of salt because mine was obviously faulty and it blew out within the first couple of minutes. But it does sound a lot better now with the new EDF. It goes really hard. The only thing that I wish they would have done is given us a little bit of ventilation in the battery compartment. There's no inlet holes anywhere, and there's no exit holes for airflow. So I have found that my batteries, after a flight, especially if I'm really giving it plenty of throttle, the batteries come out quite warm. Even this Bolt one actually comes out quite warm out of the battery tray. So maybe I'll look at doing some ventilation in the future just to allow some airflow, but we'll see. For the moment, it is what it is. And that's probably going to wrap up this review for the H.King L-39. Now for setup, I'm going to do the exact same thing I did on my previous video where I'll put everything up on screen and I'll also have it in the video description down below for you guys to have a look at. One thing to keep in mind is that this plane is a very twitchy plane, especially on the ailerons. I've got my rates down to 50% at the moment and it's still a bit twitchy. What I may end up having to do, and you can sort of see it here, is the control rods kind of come about midway through the servo horn, but I reckon if I take this off really carefully, and then I'll have to re-glue it, of course, I may be able to run this servo horn, like the push rod, on the servo horn a little bit lower, and that will give me better resolution on my controls and make everything a little bit smoother. If you don't sort of like really minimize your throws, it's going to be a very twitchy plane. It's not so bad on the elevator, although you probably do need to be quite conservative on the elevator throws as well. But on the aileron specifically, this is a very sensitive aircraft. So just be mindful, turn your rates down, put in plenty of expo, and you should have a nice smooth flying experience. Now before we wrap this up, I do want to give a big shout out to H.King once again for supporting the channel and sending out not only the L-39, but also these little 2200 4S batteries, which I was using in the plane. Now, I've got the 3S version of these and they've actually been holding up really, really well. So now they've got the 4S and they've also got a 3300 that's supposed to be about the same size as your typical 2200 or so battery, which I'm also curious to try out. I want to see if it's going to give me longer flight times out of this guy, because so far I can only get about 3 minutes out of this. But also just putting it like in planes like the Tundra, for example, or anywhere else where you typically put a 2200 4S, like the EF Extra, for example, would be a great one. and just seeing if we can extend flight times that way. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, big thanks to H.King for sending this one out. Now, if you want to grab one of these or any of the batteries that I've talked about, check the video description down below. I'll have links in there for all of that. And there will be affiliate links, I'll be honest with you. So if you do get them through there, it does help the channel out a little bit. And yeah, that's going to wrap up this review. Now I'm going to leave you with a couple more flights. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the flight footage of this guy. I'm definitely getting a little bit more comfortable with it, especially in the last couple of flights, and having a lot of fun with this guy. So a nice toss and boss type of aircraft, just ailerons, elevator, no rudder, and just have a blast with it. So that's it from me, guys. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you're new, and I'll be speaking to you all next time. So it's the next day and we're back here again with the L-39, and there's some good news and some bad news. Good news is I had a spare 64mm EDF that came out of my Marlin from Arrows, so it's actually an FMS 64mm. I had to take the lip off the EDF in order to make it fit, and I had to trim a little bit of foam, but it fitted in there. It hooked up to the 50 amp PSC that comes included, and it's all working and ready to go again. The other thing I found out is that the ESC, the stock ESC that this comes with, doesn't like HV batteries. So I actually had this charged up to HV, to high voltage. And after I hooked everything up, I powered it on and it would just beep. It wouldn't actually work. So I had to discharge this one to 4.2 volts per cell. And we'll be trying that after the little 2200. Now, the downside with the weather today is that it's quite windy. It's a lot more windy than it was yesterday. The wind is now from the north, where yesterday it was from the south. It's very mild weather. We also have less cloud cover, so I got to be careful with the sun doesn't get in my eyes. But yeah, let's see how it flies. See if we can get a full 3 minutes out of it, and hopefully come down safely when we land.
Throttle on. Time to rock and roll. Time and stop. Time and start.
Alrighty, here we go. A few boys behind me at the moment that have come in on their little e-scooters. They seem to be pretty impressed with this thing. Getting very kicked around up there. Oh, straight through the sun. Ah, my retinas. Oh God, I did it again. system is very, very good. Let's see how it lands with this battery in it. Do one more pass. My eyes are starting to water.
30 seconds.
Nice.
Throttle off. Aircraft safe. Timer stop.
Different location today. This is a park at the end of my street, and we're going to take up the L-39. I don't like how this canopy just comes off so easy. Wind's coming from the left. Hopefully the duckies don't panic too much and I don't get a bird strike.
Timer start. Throttle on. Time to rock and roll.
Running a 2200 bolt. Let's go. They all freaked out. At least here the sun's behind me and I can fly most hand launch planes. Still very aggressive roll at about 50% rates. She's very fast with this EDF system. Throttle off with the wind. Alright, we'll do one more pass and then we'll start lining her up for landing. Oh, jeez. Oh my god. What was that?
50 seconds.
Let's slow it down.
40 seconds.
We're going to have to come in from the deep end here. Let's see. Oh, you cannot get better than that.
Throttle off. Aircraft safe. Timer stop.